The path is your own journey.
Right.
The initiate has to go on its own journey. And you can't take nothing with you. And you at the goddamn crossroads. And the crossroads is, are you ready to go to the next level?
Yeah.
Because guess what? I can't take you to the next level. Right? You got to make that decision.
Gift of aligned timing. All right, so we got to talk about time. But most importantly, about timing. And as you go deeper into your spiritual journey, you begin to realize that things are more about timing. One of the things that helped me realize the importance of timing is the study of astrology. So we're going to get into a little bit of astrology on this one. Because the nature of life is cyclical, so things have cycles, things have terms, and astrology is one of the things that you can use as a reference point to help you understand the cycles of your life, the cycles of time, the seasons that you're in, your personal seasons, because it's about alignment. So when we're talking about time, we have to talk about Saturn, the planet Saturn. When we talk about time, we have to talk about the planet Saturn. Saturn is the ruling of time in astrology, right? And we all actually have what we would call a Saturn return every 27 and a half to 28 years, which is also a cycle. 28 years, 28 days, 28 grams to an ounce, you feel me? So on and so on. So it's funny because I had ran across a video of two goats, and I didn't realize the nature of goats were to just bump heads. I thought that was just a ram. I'm an Aries, so I fuck with the rams, and I thought that's what rams do, but I didn't know goats. You know, they just spend time together bumping heads. But what I noticed was the timing. I noticed that they work together to form a certain timing to bump heads to get, I don't know if it's a certain sound or a certain feeling or whatever the case may be. I might got to look a little bit deeper into that. But I noticed that they both was working with timing. Now, when we talking about the GOAT, we have to be talking about the zodiac sign Capricorn, right? Now, follow me. Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn. Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn, which rules time. So I found it funny that the goats was bumping heads and it was based on the timing, because Capricorn is the GOAT. Capricorn and Saturn is like the father. It's like the father figure, you know, that planet that stand over you and like a father and watch and make sure you're on time, make sure you're doing what you got to do. It's the discipline, you know, it adds discipline to your life. It adds structure to your life, but through time, right? So, like I said, when we talk about astrology, we're talking about Saturn, we're talking about time, and we're talking about alignment. Now, when we're talking about alignment is something that is specific to the person, is specific to the path. So you could be standing right next to somebody, and that don't mean y'all on the same time, and even though y'all in the same time zone, even though y'all together. And this is why I constantly stress the importance of cultivating a relationship with your intuition. Because your intuition is connected to your specific alignment for life, right? So we have times in life where we be tripping out because we got situations, we got circumstances, we have plans. And a lot of times we feel like we just don't have time. We don't have enough time, or we running out of time. So we get a little antsy, we get a little anxious. Some of us get a little bit more worried. Some of us can't appreciate what's actually coming our way because it didn't happen in the timing that we planned on it happening. That's another thing I stress. I always stress that the nature of life is uncertainty. So it's best that you get in alignment with your assignment. And it's easy for me to say that, but that's a whole journey that you got to go on to understand what it feels like to be in alignment, right? So when you're traveling on your own path spiritually, right, it's going to lead you to times where you might be in a downtime, where you're recalibrating, where you're getting a better relationship with your intuition, where you're digging into the parts of yourself that aren't so easy to accept, the parts of yourself that you just was unfamiliar with and unaware of, right? And a person and people that you might be dealing with, whether it's business, whether it's a relationship, whether it's just life in general, the world at large can be on a different timeline, in a different time zone. So that could be a struggle. That could be a challenge. Us being on our downtime, us being in between a void, so to speak, while everything else is going along. Sometimes people feel like, oh man, I should have been made it over here, or I should have been did this at a certain time in my life, based on what they see other people doing, or they see their peers doing and things like that. And that's a lot of times where we go wrong. That's where we went wrong as a collective. Everybody's trying to jump on a certain timeline that yields a certain result. So they neglect their own intuition, they neglect their own timeline to jump on a timeline that's working. I find myself saying this in so many different ways over and over again. And that's another thing I realize. I'm constantly giving the same message, just in different ways, because I'm going to always point you back to you. I'm never going to act like I got the answers. I'm never going to come up here and try to sound like I'm smarter than somebody else or anything like that. What I do know is that I strive to stay in alignment, because it's a difference between time and timing. Because when we talk about timing, we talk about alignment. So these goats have to be in find a certain sync within themselves and between each other to, bump heads. And I'm gonna get down to whatever that do. I'm gonna have to do some more research. I know they bumping heads for a reason. I know it's in their nature, but I know it probably have like something to do with their health and things like that, or their maturity or something like that. That's just off the top of my head. I just think it's based on maturity, just because Saturn is the father. Saturn rules time. Saturn rules Capricorn. Capricorn is the GOAT. So I just feel like it got something to do with growth and maturity. By the way, these was young goats that I was looking at when I was watching it. I haven't even really looked at full mature goats and to know if they even bump heads or anything like that, if they continue those behaviors. But anyway, like I said, it's about finding your niche, finding your timing. And like I said, that's a journey. That's not something you're going to be able to find an outside reference for. That's something you're going to have to learn by trial and error, which as humans, especially with our rational mind, when we are so attached to being rational and being practical, because it's a balance. It's a spiritual side and it's a practical side. And I strive to walk that balance. But like I said, a lot of times our rational mind come in and tell us, yo, shit should be this way, shit should be that way, we should have already got done, we should already be there, whatever the case may be, and we neglect aligned timing. So like I was saying earlier, people around you may very well be in different seasons of their lives. You got to tap into the season of your life that you're in. And when you do tap into that, you're going to realize like you're not missing anything. You're going to realize that your path that you're walking, even with the negative situations, even with the things that seem like they're bad, it's going to come moments in time where you'll have an epiphany, you'll have a realization that everything makes sense and that everything was already in alignment. And I'm pretty sure everybody that went through that many times in their life to where a misfortune turned out to be a fortune. That's why I always say you never know the misfortune and the fortune, and you never know the fortune and the misfortune. So when I'm sitting in a time that might seem misfortunate, I'm still sitting alert. I'm still sitting in alignment because I'm trying to figure out what is here that's going to push the trajectory of my path so I can move forward in advancement. And advancement don't always mean doing. Advancement don't always mean having. Advancement don't always mean accumulation. That's what I think go over a lot of people's heads. They turn themselves into human doing. So a lot of people can't sit still. And the thing about time actually does sit still. Because let's talk about just time and move from timing for a second, right? When we're just talking about time, we're talking about a concept that we've all collectively agreed on, that we would measure in hours and seconds and minutes and things like that, right? So it could give us some sense of normalcy, some sense of sanity, and some sense of civilization, right? That's what time is. It's just an idea. So when we move on to aligned timing, we're talking about the quantum field. And when I'm talking about quantum, it's synonymous with spirituality. So scientists would call it quantum. We call it spirituality. So when we're talking about moving into the quantum field, we're moving into the field of all possibilities, excluding nothing. That means the possibilities of something negative happening first, or whatever the case may be, something bad happening, whatever you want to call it, something good happening. We put ourselves in a genuine space. That's why I keep talking about being genuine, ingenuity. You can't be genuine when you have an agenda. And it's okay to have an agenda and know your agenda. It's kind of like a paradox. You have to know when it's the universe time to move. You got to know when it's God time to move. You got to know when it's time to be still. So when we talking about the quantum field, we talking about stillness, because time cannot be fluid unless it moves through the moment. And that's the thing about spirituality. Spirituality, true, real spirituality, which is really just getting to know the real you, the holistic you, all your bullshit, all your talents, all your gifts, all that, all the good and the bad, not just incense and gemstones and shit like that. When you start to heal yourself and come into a better integrated place within yourself and heighten your level of awareness about yourself, you begin to cultivate the ability to be still, even when the world is raging, even when the bills is due and you don't know what you're going to do next. You trust the relationship that you cultivated between yourself and God, yourself and the universe, and just, you and you. It's all one and the same. So you begin to learn the language of yourself. You begin to learn the language of your intuition, and you begin to get certain nudges and signs and what we call synchronicities, and your life begin to become meaningful because you're able to be still and you're able to step into the quantum field where all possibilities are at, and you're able to finally come to a relaxed state where you're open and expanded. That's something that's very hard for most people to do, especially when we have labels like you're an adult, you're a dad, you're a mom, you should, you shouldn't. You got shit like that going on. all of these concepts and ideas of who you are, who you should be, where you should be at, you constantly fighting against those vibrations. Those frequencies don't go nowhere. You just learn how to, like I said, step into the space of timelessness. Because we always in a space of timelessness. We just hold ourselves in place when we start to get anxious about the future or dwell on the past too much. You feel me? We do that to ourselves, but in reality, time is standing still. That's why your future is going to happen now. Your past, when you think about it, is only able to be thought about because you're here now. And I try to stress this to just people around me in my regular life, enjoy the times in between. Enjoy the journey. If you're really aware that you're on a journey, but I realize the journey is truly a choice. We got a lot of people out here right now using the slang, chosen one this, chosen one that, and I think it's a huge misunderstanding in being chosen. I think people think, oh, God chose you, this, that, and the third. Nah, it's a path laid for you, and you choose to actually walk it. You choose to be one with it. You choose to be the creator. You choose to be the one that experienced the path and allow it to be done through you. So it's a journey, literally, just to get back to the moment. That's a journey. Because we so caught up in what's next and we so caught up in what happened already that it's hard to find our own timing. Because everybody else got to watch. Everybody else telling you, I needed you to do this and I need you to do that. And you telling yourself all of these narratives and stories and not taking the time to do the inventory to see what's the root of all of these narratives and stories and all of the things that's pushing and pulling on you, that's keeping you from your aligned timing. Because when you're in aligned timing, there's no worry about what's inevitable. If my intuition tells me go left, and my rational mind is like, nah, man, right is the shortcut, right is the right way to go, and this, that, and the third. Once I begin to step out on faith, and that's why faith is so important with timing and everything. Faith is like the glue for every religion and all ideas involving the unseen. Like, you gotta have some faith. That's a journey. And when I'll constantly say that's a journey, when I say that's a journey, that means these type of things sometimes are so simple, but take 3, 4, 5 years, maybe never worry. Some people never come to the realization that the time is now. It's all about the moment. You're not going to experience anything twice the same way, and for that reason, do your best to experience it all. Like I said, you might have a person that's career-driven or money-driven or something like that. When they stand beside a person that's tapped in spiritually and truly on their inner path and truly have a gauge and has cultivated a language with their intuition and follow their intuition, they kind of look different, because you'll notice a poise in a more spiritually sound person, because they have found the moment, they have found their aligned time within themselves. So they don't worry about tomorrow. They don't worry about next week. They're not worried about if it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. It's inevitable. You wouldn't have had it in your imagination. You wouldn't have took the first 2 steps to go towards it if it wasn't inevitably going to happen inevitably. I think I said it right. If it wasn't going to be inevitable, then you would have never had the imagination to take that path, right? And that's what we like to do. We like to ignore our imagination like it's not the single most greatest feature that we got here outside of our heart. Because the mind is all and the universe is mental. So depending on how wide your imagination can stretch is dependent on how wide and what range you're going to be able to have your human and spiritual experiences. And like I said, we hold ourselves back because there's so many other reference points around us. There's so many people rushing. There's so many people walking a certain pace or at someone else's pace, and we haven't found our own pace. And this is something that a goat would know. The goats know this. That's why you go watch two goats bumping heads, and you're gonna realize like it's about timing. Like I mentioned earlier, so Saturn rules timing, Saturn rules discipline. And the thing about timing too, the thing that makes timing so meaningful is the correlation it has with the intuition. So when you start to listen to your intuitive abilities, and this is some shit that a lot of people don't talk about because it's unseen and it's intangible and you can't really prove it and you can't just pull out a receipt. But people notice, they realize when you're one of those that got that poise, when you're one of those that don't worry and you move through life with a certain grace, regardless if everything seems to be falling apart, people start to realize and they start to look and they start to realize that you on to something. And they might think you know something and you real smart or something like that, but you just have surrendered to aligned timing. You surrendered to the timing of God, the timing of the universe, the timing of your soul. So if something might be looking like it's tearing down, your intuition could be telling you, okay, if my world is going up and shit, then maybe it's supposed to. Maybe it's time to change. Maybe it's time for transformation. And you begin to get yourself prepared to endure that. Not only endure it, but enjoy it and learn from it. Because if you don't learn from it, then you won't advance. And this is why we have a lot of people that are human doings. 90% of the planet are human doings. Their identity is based on what they can do. Their identity is based on actually physically doing things. So the more, and I'm not saying just because you get into spirituality, it's not going to be nothing to do, or you're not going to be doing anything. It's just the fact your identity won't be based on that. Your anxiety won't be based on that. Your depression won't be based on trying to hold your world from falling apart. You'll realize that the world within you is the only real world, and you'll be okay with that. So once we get into a rhythm of aligned timing, right? Because aligned timing is a gift. The reason why it's a gift is because it only takes one thing for you to do, and that's just surrender to it. You don't have to plan it out. You don't really have to think about it. It's going to be something that's going to kind of take you for a ride of its own. But you must surrender, and that's a problem of our ego. Our ego, like I always say, wants to attach to the familiar, to things that it can control. So to surrender is death of the ego. And that's what real spirituality is about. And I don't want to just say death of the ego, but death of the ego being the driver. And more of the ego being a vehicle. That's where you want to be. You want to be able to use the ego for the vehicle that it is as much as you can. But when you believe you are the ego, you're rushing. You know what I mean? You're anxious. You're depressed. You feel like something's off. You feel like something's ain't right. It's not right. And that's because you're not on your aligned timeline. So we got a culture right now where everybody is screaming out, goat, goat, goat. They the goat. And everybody's a goat. Everybody a goat right now. And I'm looking like, how could you be a goat if you're not moving on your own timing? And sometimes you got to be the only one to move on that timing. Sometimes it'd be a long time for somebody else to get on that path. When we just talk about, when we look at things like music, we look at things like sports, it's always a person that seems to be a rebel. It's always a person that go against the time that they living in. And a lot of times it be just them being themselves, go against the norm. So they be the ones to break the mold. But in doing that, you get a lot of backlash. You get a lot of people abandoning you. You get a lot of lack of support and things like that. You get a lot of people looking at you like you crazy. And that's why, I remember being in a time when if my money wasn't flowing right, I had to get it. I had to get it. And I hadn't had a time where I could sit down and just relax and see how life feel without the chase of that. Not only that, I allowed that to be a part of my identity. So I felt like if I ain't had this and I ain't had that, people would look at me. I was worried about family, friends, people that know you just judging you based on what you got and what you don't got, what you're doing and what you're not doing, based on just societal thought forms and things like that. And I realized the more I allowed that to go, the more I allowed that to leave me, I began to truly step on my aligned timeline and get in alignment with aligned timing, and things happen when they're supposed to happen. I realize I'm less stressed. I realize I'm more energetic, and I realize when it's time for me to do something and hit my mark and I aim, it's more graceful and it's much more of an experience than it is doing anything. Even me just talking right here, like, I'm not doing this, it's just happening. I'm just a part of it. I'm just an instrument of it. I'm not trying to do this. To be honest with you, I actually got up out my bed at 11 o'clock at night to record this because sometimes these things just call to me. I don't know why. It's for whoever's listening. It's for whoever's going to, this is going to resonate with. I don't know why. I'm just obedient to the timing. So if I have to get up out the bed to, give a spell, then that's what I do. Because we never really know what's going on the other side of who's watching us or who's listening, or if we make this song, who it's going to affect in the future. You might record a song that birthed the next revolutionary, that birthed the next great artist, that stops the next leader, or whatever the case may be. You might be the person that stopped them from committing suicide or something like that. You just really never know. And here's the thing, you might not be around to witness it. We got to be all right with that. And when I think about Saturn, I think about time, and I think about timing, I think about legacy. Because here's the thing about legacy, right? Legacy is something that you keep it moving, you leave it behind. You're not supposed to be expecting rewards for it. It's a saying. The man that plants a tree knowing that he might never reap the shade of that tree has become enlightened. And that's why, when I decide to come out and I decide to express myself, I try not to express myself in a way where it could be dated or it could be trendy, or you could go back and figure that, he was talking about this, that, and the third. Nah, it's something that is made with the intentions that no matter what time you look at it, or no matter what time you listen to it, you can gain something from it, and it's not stuck on a particular timeline. But it's a journey. It's a journey. Like I said, it's a journey of really stillness. It's a journey of letting your neurotic side go and kind of calming yourself and being able to move from a point of reference of poise rather than the events that's outside of you pushing you around and pulling you around and telling you what to do and what not to do. You damn sure ain't on your timeline if you're living like that. But we all on our certain levels of awareness, so it takes time sometimes. Sometimes we waste time with people, or we seem to waste time with people, because time is never really wasted, but we seem to waste time with people when we find that things ain't work out, this person wasn't the one. I shouldn't have never did this. But if we tap in just a little bit, we'll realize that all of those things happen for a reason. Now it's up to you to be still enough within yourself. I'm not talking about just sitting down and meditating all day. I'm just talking about having a home within yourself, having a level of poise and stillness within yourself. It's a matter of you sitting down with that and being able to reap the reward, reap the benefit, reap the lesson from the time that you spent. Because we spend time a lot of times when we sell ourselves short and give ourselves away for cheap. And it could leave us feeling like I said, just like it was a waste of fucking time. But it's up to you not allow it to be a waste of time. And the fact that it's your responsibility not to allow time to be something that is wasted because of that responsibility, I feel like that's why people run around so much. That's why people run from themselves so much, because it's no instant gratification there. People don't trust the timing of the reaping and the sowing. So we become maniacs and we become control freaks, and we walk around with a bad aura and just a down energy about ourselves, feeling like we didn't do things the right way or at the right time and things like that. And it all be based on concepts that we didn't even make up. A lot of these concepts come from our family. A lot of these concepts come from society, the community, how we was raised, our girlfriends, our boyfriend, with relationships we in, all kinds of shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's up to us to constantly remind ourselves to get back into alignment. But first we got to know what alignment is. Now, when you're on your aligned timeline, it's no rush. There's no rush. Everything is inevitable to you. So when something that negative seemed to happen, you'd be like, oh, okay, that just must have to happen because, and you give it its own meaning rather than letting it define you. And that's what I'm really getting at. It's only one way you're going to be able to make your life meaningful, and that's to give it meaning. And the only way you could truly give it meaning is to actually experience life in its fullest form. And experiencing life in its fullest form means having days where you're confused, having days where you don't know which way to go, having days where you stressed and things like that, and it feel like everything is falling apart. And it's tough. It's tough to do because there's so many things in this world that are built and conditioned to overtake the spirit, to overtake the soul, to outweigh the intuition. And we fall short, you know what I mean? We all fall short. So, you know, when something that seemed not to come in my favor or my family favor or things like that, I just chalk it up as something that had to happen. That's something that maybe I might want to try to avoid in the future, but I take it up as data. I take it up as something that is teaching me and helping me instead of looking at it like doomsday. And we live in a system that benefits off of you running around like a chicken with your head cut off. You running around confused. You're not taking 5 to 10 minutes just to center yourself. That's not something that is taught in this society. That's not something that is embraced in this culture, is being still, being patient. I'm glad I thought about patience because that's one of the main things about timing is patience. Sometimes you could arrive to where you think you want to be a little bit too early. What if you get there too early and you haven't cultivated the abilities, skills, talents, and confidence and things that are needed for the path that you believe that you're on, the path that you believe that you're supposed to be on, because you're in a rush. Now you get there and you get rejected. Now you get there and it don't work out. Now you get there and you continue to try to force something and you miss all of the things around you, all of the signs, all of the symbols, because you pushing. Instead of letting the universe do its job, instead of letting God do his job, you tell the universe, you tell God, you say, step to the side, I got it. You tell the soul, I got it. The ego got it. Because I want this to happen now. And the only thing that drives that is the lack of clarity. The feeling of lack itself. Feeling like you'll finally be able to accept yourself, or you'll finally to be able you'll finally be able to feel like you have arrived once you get to a certain point in your life. And that's really not what this life experience is made to be. This life experience is made to experience all facets. It's made to deal with time in its fullness. And it's made for you to get to an understanding that you can unlock and activate specific timelines through just engaging with the moment. That's why I'm always engaged. I'm always putting an emphasis on engaging with the moment. Not jumping back into your shell like a turtle. Not saying, oh, I don't like this part of life, or this is too much, or this ain't happened yet, or whatever the case may be. So you jump into this defensive shell, or you go run and hurry up and do something that's going to give you a little bit of gratification to make you feel like you're progressing, or give you the illusion of progression, while it really truly hold you back and hinder you. Shit, I done had a time in my life where I done got a certain amount of money at the wrong time. When I look back, well, it was a lesson, so I can't say it was the wrong time, but looking back, I'm like, damn, I was too young. I ain't know no better. It was like giving a kid $1 million, and a 3-year-old, if you give them $1 million, they just gonna want toys and candy. They're not gonna think about their future. They're not gonna think about their family too much. They're not gonna think about anything outside of their desires, their wants, and urges and cravings and shit like that. So you could go ahead and run into something thinking that you want it, thinking that it's something that you need, or whatever the case may be, and get it a little bit too early, and that's just as bad as getting there too late. And the only way to avoid that is to trust the timing. So it's going to always, the message is going to always come back to trust. The message is going to always come back to being genuine, having integrity. And one thing I'm learning in my life now is patience. That's one of the main things about time, and patience is a motherfucker. But if something is inevitable, then you don't wait on it. I used to tell my son, I would go to the store or something, and he'd be like, Dad, you took long as hell. Well, he wouldn't say long as hell, but he'd be say, Dad, you took long. And I'd be like, if you wasn't waiting, I wouldn't have took long. You feel what I'm saying? The fact that you putting your energy on something and you waiting on it, or you can't wait, or you rushing it, or you wish it never happened, or you depressed about it and you stuck in the past about it. The fact that you're doing that, you're not even able to enjoy it when it does transpire. When a dream does come into fruition, it'll still seem like something ain't right, something's off kilter, and it'll rob you of the fruits of your labor. It'll rob you of more expansion, because now you're outside of your aligned timing, so you're not even thinking straight. You're not getting the proper thoughts. You're getting thought forms of frustration, thought forms of impatience, thought forms of anger and doubt and uncertainty, instead of having that constant feeling of satisfaction, having that constant feeling of contentment, and knowing that your future, your dreams, your goals, whatever is for you is not going to miss you, and that it's on time. It's going to be on time, and it always is. But you can miss it. You can miss it waiting on it. You can miss it chasing it. And I mean, it's no other way to really put it. You got to trust the timing.